thought we were live the entire time.
Every song is a fucking journey.
This is the worst tour I've ever done.
Anthony Crawford says Gene Simmons is crazy.
Black Album was one of the greatest fucking records of all time.
Dude, that dude is crazy. Rock and roll ain't dead.
Metal was banned.
What was the reason why White was banned?
Politics and religion.
Next record's 3-chord rock. Yeah, we're gonna do an AC/DC record.
When we do the next record take, we need to interview the producer and just make sure that they're not going to invade the Capitol.
I'm going to keep my opinions to myself. Thank you so much! This is why I get banned from tours.
Nobody does anything to get anyone in trouble. Like, no alcohol is consumed on the bus.
Just yoga and prayers. All right.
Welcome everyone. Another fine week where I'm drinking in front of a camera. This week we got Munsey Ricci here from Skateboard Marketing and Metal Contraband. Is that the name of the other company?
Yes, Metal Contraband, the weekly trade journal.
Awesome, man. I was just hanging out with Munsey at the Happens Fest. It's a radio convention. We had a lot of fun and drank way too many beers, or at least I did. I'm still paying for it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, dude, that diner, the eggs were just not good. It must be like a Las Vegas thing. That's like every time I'm out there and I eat eggs at a diner, they're just not good.
Yeah, well, they get them at Smith's, man. They're not the best eggs.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did you guys end up at?
That's probably means there's no steroids in them to give them a good taste.
Good Lord. They're eating radioactive bugs. That's what's going on.
Dude.
Was that was that first place we went to, right? With the steak and eggs?
Yeah, where I dropped the toast on the floor.
That's right. Anyway, let me put the link here in the comments so anyone that's watching can find you here. And
so that anybody out there doesn't know, Munsey is the radio guru for all of bands. And Munsey, I'd love to hear your history. I'm sure all of our listeners and viewers would too, man. I'm sure you've got quite a few stories to be told too, if you can tell them on, over the air.
Dude, you know what, dude? We have, what do we have? We have an hour. I don't know if we're going to be able to get like all the good stories in for like an hour, but that's all right. I'm sure we can squeeze in one or two good ones.
We can always do a part. How many reports you would like to have, my friend?
Oh, that's all right, dude. I'd love to.
Yeah, just a short.
But yeah, Munsey. So how'd you get your start?
I was in a band. I played lead guitar. I was in a thrash band, and obviously we didn't get signed. You know, it happens. And I went to engineering school, audio engineering school, because I worked in a studio. And the place I wound up in was a post-production room. It was a big jingle house. And went back to college, started doing college radio. And went to work for CMJ Media, which was one of the radio trade magazines back then. They were like the company that published the first college radio chart. Mm-hmm. And from there I went to Combat in Effect Records, and obviously everybody knows Combat, legendary Combat in Effect. You know, they had Megadeth, and they had Exodus and Steve Vai and a lot of bands before they all signed their major label deals. Mm-hmm. And that led me to Polygram Records, where I was director national metal promotion from '89 to '91. And then I left and started this company in August of '91. And here it is, 33 years later. We're still here.
Wow, man.
Annoying people to play my records.
You've had Skateboard Marketing since '91.
Yeah, since 1991. And we got Chris Payne to thank for that.
No kidding,
Actually,
man.
you know what, Joseph, you met Chris Payne while we were out there. We had a few of the first photos we took was with Chris Payne. That's the cat that kind of actually named the company.
Oh, right. Okay. Didn't you have another partner too?
No, I've never had a partner. I've always been solo.
Oh, I thought you had a partner.
I mean, I got 2 people on staff, but you know, I've always been like the only owner.
I see. What were some of the early bands that you worked with in the 90s?
We started with obviously Doro and LA Guns and Yngwie Malmsteen because we handled them at Polygram. So, you know, when I started the company, they came over and started working with us, which was cool. Then we had the Almighty and Tony McAlpine and Vinnie Moore.
Wow, man. All the guitar guys, man.
Yeah,
that's right.
You got to remember, it was all the Polygram bands. And the last band I worked for Polygram was Ugly Kid Joe. We set that whole record up. I exited the building on Friday, and the new person came in Monday and went for ads on a record that I had set up and like had in motion for the last 2 or 3 months. And we actually jumped on board with that. And then, you know, around like 93, 94, you know, we started with, you know, we got the Judas Priest, you know, when obviously Rob Halford left the band, and we started working with Priest. Then we started working with Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath. And we got the Forbidden record and, you know, all the later Tony Iommi stuff with Tony Martin, the Tony Martin era stuff. You know, then we wound up with Testament and Exodus and a bunch of other bands. And then from there, you know, the roster just grew. And, you know, I will say this, it was really, really cool because there was a lot of good bands and there was a lot of competition too. So by having all that competition, the beauty of this was I had all the bands I was into and I liked working with, which was awesome.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. So, like with the Polygram stuff, working which Yngwie records? Because I'm a massive Yngwie fan, so of course I'm going to ask.
Oh, Yngwie, that was Eclipse.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was the Eclipse record.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, and that was actually my very first tour as a major label guy.
No shit.
Joe, New England local, came down to do national in New York, and they called me in the office one day. And he called me into his office. He's like, "Listen, I'm down here doing national with all of you guys. There's nobody to cover a radio in the Northeast." And I said, "Well, I'm here. I just make calls and get people to the show. That's what I'm doing." He goes, "Well, we need you to go pack a bag and go out on the road with Yngwie." And that was the Dio tour.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So actually, Joseph and I were just talking about that. Was that Sacred Heart? Was that the tour?
No. That was the Lock Up the Wolves tour.
That
was the Lock Up
with
the Wolves tour. And
Rowan, right?
He told me to go pack a bag and meet the tour bus at the Parker Meridian Hotel. I was like, "Well, yeah, dude, I'm there." I said, "Well, when do I meet the bus?" He goes, "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m." So I was like, "Yeah, can I go home early and pack?" Dude, I drove home, you know, that night, and I packed all my stuff. I was up at 6 in the morning, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was in front of the Parker Meridian Hotel. There was the tour bus. I put my bag in a bunk, waited for the guys to come down, and there you have it. It was great. We did the whole Northeast.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I had no idea you're doing that. That's fucking cool, man. I'm sure offline we can tell some stories about that.
Oh, dude, we had a lot of fun, you know. And it's Yngwie's a good guy, you know. I mean, you know, like he's real easy to work with if you know him. You know, if you don't know him, you know, I mean, you don't know him. But I've never had an issue with him, and I knew he could be difficult with some people, but he was always great with me, you know. And now he's sober; he doesn't drink, and he's like an absolute pleasure to work with everybody. He's great.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because you're not a singer.
Nah, not really, dude. I have no voice, and when I was in a band, my microphone was off. So there you go.
That's the secret right there, man.
How was? Did you get to meet Dio on that tour?
Yeah, well, I met Ronnie. The first time I met Ronnie was the CMJ convention in 1986, and he was our keynote speaker. And the staff was in a room. Ronnie came into the panelist ready room. I met Ronnie. I met Wendy for the first time, and I kind of became friends with Wendy. And when I went to work for Polygram, Ronnie was signed to Polygram in Europe and Warner Brothers in the U.S. So we had him for Europe. So technically, he was one of our artists for over there for international. So I kind of built a really good relationship with Ronnie and Wendy, and Ronnie kind of became family to us. And once after the Lock Up the Wolves record, I already started the company, and we started working with Ronnie, and we did all the Dio stuff, everything that he put out. And in '93, we also started with all the Motorhead stuff as well. So management brought us in as kind of the in-house guy for radio for Motorhead.
Yeah, wow, man. Yeah, all that stuff during the '90s, like early '90s up until there was so much of an underground kind of scene going on, because there was also metal was not as popular. Grunge kind of came in, but there was still that flat out underground metal to everybody else, that everybody actually still listened to it all. It was a great time for all that, because Testament was also doing what was that, the Low record that you probably worked?
Yeah, but remember something, grunge got really big on the mainstream. And on the mainstream front, Soundgarden, Love Bone, Mudhoney, and you gotta remember too, we did the Apple record by Mother Love Bone, because they were signed on Polydor. That was on Polygram. So we actually worked that record, and it's a brilliant album. But that's when Andrew Wood passed away. He passed away right after the album came out, and the band went on to become this little old band called Pearl Jam.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mother Love Bone. Right. And then, then Eddie Vedder joined. Yep. Right on.
I think that narrative gets more played, because there were some big bands. Like, I grew up in the early '90s, and like you had like bands like Typo Negative blowing up. You had obviously Metallica was at their biggest in the early '90s. Guns N' Roses, the Pantera became fucking huge. Like, it wasn't like grunge came and just be heavy metal. It just kind of wiped away all the glam rock,
all the glam stuff.
Well, yes and no, because when you went out and you saw Helmet live or you saw Typo Negative live, every room was packed and every venue was packed. The only place where you didn't really see a packed room was for the smaller bands that were just didn't have a record out, or they just signed a deal and they were out, touring and doing their thing. But on the mainstream, grunge got really big, and I'm not going to say I would be a lot that I wasn't into a lot of it, because I was a big Nirvana fan and I totally dug Mudhoney, and I'm a huge Soundgarden fan, and I kind of really dug the sound. But dude, thrash to me is where it's at, because that's what I grew up with. That's what my people's like.
Yeah, and during that time too, you also had bands like Death.
Oh yeah, Chuck, always. Yeah, and then there was Control Denied. We actually got Metal Blade actually hired us for Control Denied on the record. So
I didn't realize that was a Metal Blade record. Metal Blade did Control Denied. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was either Metal Blade or Enigma. I know we got hired, and I'm pretty sure it was Metal Blade. Okay. Yeah. That's
Metal
a great
Blade
record.
had so much cool stuff. Metal Blade and Enigma had so many cool bands back then. And we were talking through the late '80s and early '90s, when I was in college radio and getting out of radio, and as a label guy, they still had great bands, always.
One that I always thought that got passed under the radar with going from the '80s into the '90s, but still had a little bit of mainstream success. Very, very tiny bit was King's X, though. I think King's X.
Oh
was
yeah,
fucking incredible.
That was
King's
back
X
when
was
it.
cool. They were signed to Megaforce Atlantic.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, they were a Megaforce Atlantic band, like along with Testament and Overkill, and obviously, you know, the early Anthrax stuff. You know, Johnny Z discovered Anthrax. You know, but they signed like
Oh, really?
the early stuff. They were with Megaforce Island, I think it was, and but you know, Overkill and Testament and everything else, that was all Megaforce Atlantic worldwide.
Wow, man. So your whole thing was a lot of the thrash metal stuff. I'm gathering from, and then was
Yeah,
there a difference
you know, and
between-
remember Johnny and Marsha Z. I love them. They were like my second parents. I love those guys.
was there a
And,
difference between? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what? Yeah,
Go
like
ahead.
with Johnny, it's like, you know, he'd go to a show. Him and Marsha would go to shows, and fans would be just, "Who's that old guy over there in the corner? What's he doing here?" They have no idea that all the cool bands like Metallica and Overkill, all right, that all those bands, him and Marsha discovered. And what's crazy is I was at the very last Metallica Vandenberg Rod show at the Paramount Theater in Staten Island. I was at that show. I was like 16, 17 years old. And that's the last show Dave Mustaine did with the band. And when we got out of there, when we got out of there was Dave Mustaine out in the street with all his stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow, that was a guitar player from that band Metallica. Right on. You know, obviously we had no idea, you know, like what was going on, but we were like, okay, cool, you know.
Wow.
But there it is.
So I'm a massive Metallica fan, and when I was in high school, I used to read all these books about this stuff. So they came from the West Coast over to the East Coast. They were apparently crashing at Anthrax's place, right? Wasn't that the whole story? They had a loft in New York, and then they were kind of just doing some shows during the Kill 'Em All like recording sessions, or right before, obviously, because Mustaine didn't play on Kill 'Em All. But it was all
they actually had, if I remember, there's in New York we have the Music Building, and it's in Manhattan on 8th Avenue, and it's a huge apartment building with just rehearsal rooms, and there's like hundreds of, if there's like 110 apartments in there, there's 100 something rehearsal rooms. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was one in Queens too, and if I remember correctly, Metallica had a room at the one in Queens, I think, briefly while they were like recording or touring and rehearsing or doing something or other. They were there briefly.
Really, man? Yeah. So you saw their last show, man. That's with Mustaine on guitar. Not a lot of people.
Yeah, well,
say
remember
that.
it was,
You know,
it was you know, Dave and Cliff and Lars and James, and there it is, you know.
what was the dynamic like that live? Because I mean, Mustaine is such a great entity with Megadeth. He leads that band. Like I've seen Megadeth many times and have been like, okay, this guy is a front man. Imagine having a front man with 3 other frontmen on the band too. Did he have that sort of thing going on then?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I really dug the band. The Rods I always dug, but you know, Metallica, I thought, you know, I'd never seen them before. I've heard of them, but I've never seen them before, and I thought they were really cool. And I had to drive there because my bud broke his foot playing hockey. He couldn't drive, and I didn't have a car, so I drove his car. And he was like, dude, who are those guys? They suck. And I was like, bro, they were awesome. And he goes, dude, they suck. Let's get out of here. I'm like, I'm not leaving this place till I see Adrian Vandenberg. And that's just get used to it. Go find a chair, sit down, get a drink, hang out, because I'm not leaving. And you can't leave without me because you can't drive. So, so it was pretty funny. Let's fast forward now about maybe 8 years now, 7 years, 8 years. It's 1990. The Black Album is out, okay? And I hadn't seen him in about 5 years. You know, we just kind of lost touch. And I was in a bar in Manhattan, and I bumped into him. And what's he wearing? A Metallica shirt. And I was like, oh, dude, you dig Metallica? And he goes, yeah, man, they're my favorite band. I was like, yeah, don't you remember when I took you to see him? He goes, when? I said, remember the band you said that really sucked? And you wanted to leave when you broke your foot? I was like, dude, that was Metallica with Dave Mustaine in the band. And he goes, no way, no, it was. And I was like, yeah, dude, it was. So let's just put foot in mouth right now and shut it.
Ah, man, that's awesome, man.
Oh, dude, it was classic. It felt so good. It felt so good, you know?
Dude, that's really cool, man. I mean, so you've seen all these bands, man, going from. Have you always lived on the East Coast? Did you ever do some time out?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Queens and Long Island, so I've lived here my whole life. And you know, I kind of like, my whole thing is I'm very New York. I just like it here. This is where I'm from. This is my home. But just for the whole point of the gig itself, you have to be in either New York or LA. And LA just won't work for me because I'm not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, that's just not going to happen. I've kept rock and roll hours like my entire career. I'm going to try to keep it that way if I can.
That's why Jake's on the East Coast.
Yeah, man.
I'm actually on Central time. My part of Florida.
Florida.
Yeah, that's well, Munsey. So you're doing all that stuff during the '90s, and then what were some of the hard times during skateboard media's like career? Like starting off, was it just a complete ride up, or was it a roller coaster ride like any business?
Nah, you know, it's like anything in the very beginning. You know, we made it by the skin of our teeth for the first couple of years, you know, but after about 4 or 5 years, we kind of established. And once we were established, you know, we had like our mainstay artists, like everybody came to us for Motorhead and Dio were ours. Dora was ours. Yngwie was ours. You know, Sabbath was kind of ours. And we were already like 2 records in with them. And the same with Priest and Maiden. We were a couple of records in. So then there was all the other little stuff that we started getting. You know, we wound up with Seven Dust. We wound up with Power Man 5000. And even like Smashing Pumpkins. They're not a metal band at all. They were an indie band. But back in the day, you know, labels would work multiple formats. Traction. Because that's just what you had to do. You know, so I mean, you wouldn't work a band like Megadeth, the hip hop, and all the rap shows, and vice versa. You wouldn't work rap and the metal shows unless you were really dealing with Biohazard. You know, and we wound up getting the early Biohazard records. You know, like the first record we didn't work, but everything after that we got brought in on. So we had Urban Discipline and Monoleo. We did all those records. You know,
wow.
for Mercury and Warner Brothers.
Wow,
man, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember. I think Joseph was telling me too, and I think we can actually say it. This is legit, but Goo Goo Dolls was a Metal Blade record.
Yeah,
the first Google, or they were signed by Metal Blade.
Yeah, they weren't metal.
Yeah.
They were more an active band.
Yeah,
right. Munsey, I think you worked Seven Dust. I think my bass player, he was a specialty metal show DJ at MVCC for Utica College, and he was always playing that first Seven Dust record. His name was Ron.
First album. Yeah, we did the first album that had Bitch on it because actually one of my friends discovered the band playing at a bar in New Orleans during the Gavin convention. And she just so happened to walk into a bar, said, "Oh, this place looks cool. Let's go in and have a drink." And Seven Dust was playing. She went over to them and was like, "These guys were awesome." Got their info and went back. And, you know, lo and behold, they got signed to TDT Records.
Wow.
Yeah, they're doing well.
I think Seven Dust just announced too. It's like this is their final tour. They say, I think, or you know, they're going to start going into retirement, right?
Well, as so they say, but then
Right.
again, Kiss's final tour was what,
1998.
1995. Whenever,
Right,
whenever
95.
it
Yeah,
was,
they did
90
Psycho
something or
Circus.
other, and I saw that with me and my girlfriend at the time went, and then they just wrapped up their final retirement tour, and there you have it. So I'm sure that they're going to wind up doing festival days because, dude, Slayer after Repentless came out, Slayer all the quits. Now what are they doing? They're going out and they're doing festival days.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny that there was a big press release this one about Kerry King's solo record, and he's like, kind of I believe it was with Rolling Stone. I might be wrong with that, but I think that he was talking at Rolling Stone and talking to Rolling Stone, and he's like, I've been talking to any of those guys, and then like, shit, man, 40 hours later, 72 hours later, it's announced that Slayer's doing 3 festival shows, like right after Kerry was just talked about that. So yeah, Slayer's doing union shows.
No, the funny thing is, we're actually working the Kerry King solo record.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, it's actually out on Raining Phoenix. Music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a track out right now. It's a track right now. You can hear it on stereo with metal.
Yep. Yeah, it's got Mark, right?
Choices on board. We've already had like a handful of the other syndicators, Full Metal Jacket, a few others, hit on it a couple of times. So, the track is out there, and it's good. And, honestly, it's going to do really well in radio.
So I think it's kind of interesting how it's like. So how many relationships do you have with quote unquote local DJs? I know where I grew up in Panama City, Florida, Rock and Ron.
Rock and Ron, WYYX. Panama
Yes,
City.
sir. Yeah, he's gonna love this. Yeah.
Well, that's all right, because you know what, dude? Ron still does the show.
He does.
Ron is still on air, and I talk to Ron every week. He's my bud.
Dude, tell him I said what's up and that he was on this. I'll text him right after this. That's very cool. So how many of those type of guys do you have in your entire circle without all the states?
Dude, I got about 400 stations nationally.
Wow,
yeah,
man.
We have a lot. And remember that a lot of the stations that we have, some report, some don't report. It really depends. The reporters that go to the Metal Contraband or the NACC chart, which is the North American College chart, the reporting base that's kind of not small, but it's not large. Metal Contraband only has about 70 or so reporters, and there's still like another couple of hundred stations that don't report, but they have metal shows. But I talk to them every week, and they send me their playlists every week because I've been dealing with the stations for so long that they're not on anybody's radar, period. So unless you're kind of plugged in and you know where to reach out to and you know who to call, don't live in the market, you won't know they exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's just so cool, man. Because I remember when I was a kid, I would always see it was Ron's station, but it would just showcase different metal acts. I remember hearing Dragon Force for the first time on one of the stations, like back in 2004 or 5, and it's like you can hear bands for the first time on these stations. Probably stuff that you were just working, which is it all comes kind of comes back to you, which is really cool that you would get. And how would you get these bands? Would it be like the labels would contact you and be like, work these guys, see what you can do? Or was it, how exactly did that work?
No, we get a phone call from the label. Sometimes it comes from management. It could be from the band. We have a lot of relationships, and the beauty of that is, we've been around a long time. So we have a lot of good, strong relationships, and we've done well with a lot of the bands and records that we've worked. So people always come back to us, so it could be anybody hiring us, and it wouldn't be unusual if like I had a wife-ager or a dadager picking up, like my kid's a rock star and trying to hire us, but the one thing that I am pretty straight up about is I'll listen to a record, and if I don't think there's any substance there and I don't think I can get it played, I just won't take it, because at that point it's pointless. You're gonna really accomplish nothing but pissing somebody off by taking their money and getting them no results.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
I wish more people acted like that, man. It'd be a much better industry.
Yeah, wishful thinking, but it'll never happen.
Right. I wonder who this is. Someone knows you, Munsey. They said it's great to see all three of you in the chat. Some of the best people in the scene here. Great stories. I wonder who that is. Yeah, when they comment on who it is.
They want to remain.
All right, so Facebook user, what's your name?
Walking Ron on in '86. Right on, man.
Was Rockin' Ron on in '86, Munsey? Do you know?
I don't know. I wasn't doing radio promo in '86, so I don't know. I started dealing with Rockin' Ron back at as a label guy. He remembers I don't know if you remember Z-Rock. Do you remember Z-Rock, Joseph?
Rock, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, Z-Rock.
Yeah.
To anybody like listening that isn't familiar, it was a syndicated radio network based in Dallas, Texas, and they had affiliates all around the country. And all their affiliates would break the network and go live with in-house local shows. So we had one in New York, there was one in New England, there was one in Detroit, there was like one in Florida, and I think Rockin' Ron was like one of the original Z-Rock cats from way back in the day. And that's where I started dealing with Ron, and then Ron went away for a minute, and then he came back and he resurfaced at YYX, and I've been talking to him ever since.
Yeah, man, WYYX. That was the Panama City Dothan area.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. That's where I'm from.
And dude, even their music director, their music director's in the hospital. He's got some health issues and he's recovering and getting better. Or even RBG, their program director. As I said, he's in the hospital with some health issues. And I send Ron some records, and RBG is like, man, I like this record. I want to put it in. And, when we did all the Within Temptation stuff and the Epica stuff, he's a big symphonic hard rock guy, and he would add the stuff full time for us. So, they're just one of those stations where they don't really care about what their consultant says. They think, here's a record. It's a good record. It's a good song. It's going to sound good on air. Well, let's put it in and see what happens.
That was one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, was the difference between, so say you have stuff that has to be told down by, corporate.
I don't want to interrupt, but Facebook user just told us who he is. Luke DeLong. Luke, what's up, dude? I guess you guys don't know. I guess you guys don't know Luke DeLong. Luke DeLong is one of our stations. He's based up in Canada.
Oh, Luke. Yeah. Well, awesome, man.
And obviously he is playing the Witherfall record, and he's played it in the past.
Well, thank you very much, Luke. We very much appreciate it, man. My buddy Ron.
You know what? You know what's funny?
Ron, I don't want to be rude and reach for my phone and text him, but I hope someone out there, man. Last time I saw him was at a Queensryche show.
You know what's funny is that there's always these little shows, these little local shows like in upstate New York, like Gerbils, Sound and the Fury, or Rockin' Ron, or it's like that's where you find all this obscure kind of music that doesn't quite fit the mainstream AOR rock format, like the regular K time stuff. Like I heard Dream Theater and Typo Negative, the same show, the same 4-hour show, at 2 a.m, never a that stuff. If it hadn't been for Gerbil.
Let me say this. Gerbil is probably one of the longest running metal shows in the country, next to Ron Quintana. Ron Quintana on KUSF, if you watch Behind the Music with Metallica, he was the first radio station to play them live, and he kind of gave them their name. And I know Ron very well. You know, he was like, I call him with my records, but he has a very eclectic taste. So he'll only really play certain things. You know, other stuff he just wouldn't play, and that's just the guideline of his show. Gerbil started his career at WVBR in Ithaca back in the early 80s. Yeah, and then he left VBR in Ithaca and went over to K-Rock. So now he's on in Syracuse and Utica. And he's been, dude, I forgot how old he is, but he's been on air in that market for like 35 years, something or other.
Dude, he let me, I kind of like, I went to the station at like 1 a.m, like unannounced, and just like knocked on the door. Like, this is when he was up in Oriskany, which is just outside of Utica. And like, I'm like, I have a band and we need a drummer. Will you let me like, will you like run a commercial for me and let me fucking walk into the studio and like say like, this is Joseph from Midnight Rain, we need a drummer. It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, he's always fucking been really cool.
Oh, John's great. He's awesome. You know, he's a big physical guy. He likes physical product. And now, you know, the new trend in the industry, everything's digital, you know, so he's like one of a handful of people that just, they have to have a physical disc. So that's why I noticed, like, when we all work in a record, if physical is available, I want to send it to him because he wants it. And we'll get a lot of love out of him if we get a disc. But a lot of times, a lot of the records we're working are digital only, and there's a pre-order. And they only manufactured so many units, and they're all pre-order, and there's very few left over. You know, and that's just how it is. It's just like the way the industry is going, with the exception of vinyl, because at least with vinyl, you know, I mean, it's not only is it the novelty of it, but it sounds good because it's analog.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way, we'll have those CDs soon. If you want, we'll send them out to whoever you want.
Yeah, we'll send them out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We got to keep that stuff going, man. And that was one of the things. I was trying to ask you about like these channels that go outside of basically like, okay, you got to play this, you know, this certain song, this one's hitting and all that stuff. The ones that are like, okay, I prefer to listen to, you know, the 7-minute Typo Negative song, so I'm gonna play it. You know, fuck that. I'll play it. I'll play a Dream Theater song. I'll play whatever it might be. How much of that is still going on right now? Because it seems to be still prominent, which is really cool for radio. You know.
Yeah, it depends on the station. You know, stations that really have a 1-hour show. You know, it's like for them to get a 6 or 7 minute Dream Theater song on, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just how it works, because if you really look at the you know, the science and logistics of it, you know, on a 1-hour show, you can probably squeeze in about 8 songs with mic breaks and PSAs and all the other stuff and jingles and everything you have to throw in. You know, stations that have like 3 or 4 hours to play a 7-minute song is no big deal. And when I was in radio, you know, it was great because I did the top 10 at 10 on WCWB, you know, so we were on from like, I got in the studio and we were on from like 9 to midnight, you know, which was great. 3 hours. It's like, oh, you had to go to the bathroom? Oh, man, I got to drop a deuce. I got to go to the bathroom. Put on Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner from Iron Maiden, go to the bathroom and come back. Yeah. And you still have like another 8 minutes to the song left, you know?
Yeah. That's a fucking hour right there. 9 to midnight. People are still fucking driving around, you know?
Gerbil was asking. Gerbil was asking if he could premiere the record in full. He'd take a whole hour.
I mean,
I don't know if that's
Trevor
worth it.
wants to premiere the full-length album, he's more than welcome. I just have to send him a physical.
Let's do that. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, hold on. Let me now that we're not doing the interview,
I like
now
that.
we're working. Hold on. Let me write this down so I can handle this first thing tomorrow morning.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh my God. I can't finish on a.
So Munsey, so what's some other some of the craziest stuff you've seen? Some good stories you have for our viewers right now that are that you would be willing to share.
Oh, dude, believe me, I have so many great stories of stuff that we did along the way. It's brilliant, but it's just not enough time to like really get through them, and a lot of them I just don't even want. I really can't like say them publicly, so it's gonna have to be over a couple of beers at the pub, or sitting in somebody's basement with backyard barbecue. You know.
Totally, man. Yeah.
Check it out, Jake. We got the test pressings for the
test pressings.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. They're not white either. Good.
No. I have to check them out a little later. Make sure there's nothing fucked up about them.
Yeah, that's very true, man.
Especially side 4. Oh my God.
Yeah, so Munsey, what was the band you were in when you were first starting out with? You said we were in a thrash metal band playing lead guitar. Who were some of your?
Yeah, we were called Monterey.
Monterey, okay.
As in Monterey, California.
Wow, man!
And
I was talking about how you're an East Coast guy.
Yep, and our bass player and drummer were brothers. And their father had a produce company, so he had like a couple of box trucks, and they used to deliver produce. So when we had shows, you know, we used to use one of the box trucks for, you know, like it was not a box truck, it was more a bread truck, kind of, sort of, you know. So one of the guys would go up to Hunts Point Market in the Bronx with one of the trucks to pick up all the stuff for the route. And if we had a show, we'd load all our gear into the other like bread truck and go do the show and come back. And it's like all our gear smelled like lettuce and tomatoes. It was gnarly, disgusting. But, you know, I mean, dude, we didn't have to pay for a truck rental except for gas. It was cool, you know. Dude, and, you know, so there it was. And then, you know, we always seem to have a problem with like a front man. We get a front man and it's like, at the 5 shows, there'd be like 8 chicks in front. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a solo career." I'm like, "You haven't sold one record and had one tour. You've played 5 shows. You're gonna go out on a solo career?" You know, it was like, dude, that was the whole big thing. LSD, lead singer's disease. You know, we seemed to be plagued with it. It was brutal.
I object.
Yeah, so you guys were a quartet. So it was just 3 of you guys and the vocalist that would interchange.
Say what?
It was just a quartet. It was just you 3 and then the vocalist that would come.
Yeah, there was us 3 and the vocalist. So yeah, we were a 4-piece. And I mean, we thought about adding a second guitar, you know, and being a 5-piece, you know. And you know, our bass player Petey, he played keyboards too. So he could always like get in and like put in some sound effects, a couple of other things. He had an older Kai.
The John Paul Jones, Geddy Lee type thing.
Yeah, he had an older Kai, so we bring it out, and you know, it was really just like sound effects, like thunder and lightning, or rain, or like, you know, some other stuff, you know, just for ambience. But you know, that would start with like a thunderstorm and rain, and then we kick in, and it'd be ridiculous heavy, you know, and then the circle pit would start going. You know, and we'd see like a couple of broken teeth and some other stuff happen in front. It was cool, you know.
Right? Yeah. Who were your influences back then, man?
It was kind of weird. You know, I had like the old school influences and the new school influences. I mean, I listened to like Eddie Van Halen and I was just blown away. You know, it's like everything he did was just phenomenal. And then there was like Jimmy Page, you know. Obviously, the Zeppelin, I love Jimmy Page. I thought that I mean, he was sloppy as a guitar player, but he was a genius in the studio, and he was a great writer. You know,
it was also like when you would take like the Zeppelin stuff with that, it was, and I hate to use this term because I understand he was also sloppy, but it was also the vibe to it. Like it created this sort of energy with this, with even like his sloppiness and everything like that. There was definition to it. There was a point to what he was trying to say musically. Although he was getting to it in a rough around the edges.
Yeah, it was insanely good in live. You know, you look at all the old footage in live, you know, and it was just insanely good. He was a showman. He was a rock star by every means. But like Eddie Van Halen, you look at Eddie, I'm like, wow, that is just insanely cool. But then, you know, I'm stopping and I'm looking at like, you know, Brian from Diamond Head. And, you know, dude, I was a huge Diamond Head fan. And Brian Tatler to me was like a great guitar player. Now, mind you, they weren't thrash at all. They were a hard rock band. But, you know, they wrote Am I Evil, which was covered by Metallica. Or Metallica covered 5 Diamond Head songs, you know?
Right.
And I thought Brian was a great guitar player. You know, like especially like Kurt Hammett, I always thought they were like great guitar players. You know, so when the whole thrash thing started, I was like, oh, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to be. You know, and then you listen to Scott Ian from Anthrax. I'm like, dude, you know, Dave Mustaine. It's like if you play guitar and you know you're like 19 years old and that's the stuff that you're listening to and you hear, you're like, where did this come from? This is amazing. And then you had Yngwie and Tony McAlpine and Vinnie Moore. And I mean, to anybody that's listened to Edge of Insanity or Maximum Security by Tony McAlpine, I mean, dude, he's just a brilliant guitar player. You know,
Maximum Security was the one I used to listen to all the time, man. I had Maximum Security. I know that's the Polygram stuff, but I also had a bunch of the Shrapnel things where it was Cacophony, Racer X, and then both of Jason Becker, Perpetual Burn, and Marty Friedman's Dragon's Kiss. I had it all on repeat in my.
Dude, did you listen to Cacophony or Cacophony Go Off?
Cacophony Go Off was amazing. My favorite one was Speed Metal Symphony, but both of them were amazing. I can tell you, I had my favorite songs. It depends on what day of the week it was that would change between each record, you know, like the solo on X-Ray Eyes, you know, and then you would go into something that, you know, I mean, there was so many different songs on those things. I'm obsessed about all that shit with them, with those, both his guitar duos. Think about that too. It was guitar duos that were beyond like Adrian Smith and Dave Murray or KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. You got into this shred type stuff, and I mean, I know people don't like that term, but you're thinking of Jason Becker and Marty Friedman, and then Paul Gilbert and Bruce Racer X stuff. It was next level.
You know, it was the same thing with Billy Sheehan with like Talus, High Speed on Ice, Speed on Ice Live. You know,
Mr. Big with him,
exactly.
And then, Vibe,
and then
of course,
as the 80s moved on, you know, I mean, let's stop and look at like one album that is an absolute thrash masterpiece, and that's the first Metal Church album. You know, Metal Church by Metal Church, Beyond the Black. I mean, that whole record is like brilliant, nothing short of brilliant, with the late David Wayne on it. And David was great. I interviewed David, like, you know, back when I was in college radio, I interviewed David, and he was, you know, he was the nicest guy. I interviewed Kurt as well. You know, all those guys were really cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was a great time for all this stuff. It was also so fresh, you know? It was new. It was also just going off the whole aspect of building off the roots of it from the punk rock stuff. You know, it's the heavy metal and punk rock, and then just taking it to the different levels as well. And then, you know, I don't know where exactly it peaks at now. I think that everything that's kind of the more thrash has already kind of hit its peak. It's almost kind of just going back to the retro thrash, if you could even call that. I don't even know if that's a genre, but it goes back into more of that kind of you know, style of it hasn't really transcended anything, but back then it has to be completely fresh, which is really cool.
Now you're probably talking about bands like Warbringer and Cauldron and Evil and Mortillery out of Canada, You know,
Yeah.
I mean, all those thrash bands are genius. I mean, dude, the band that did it for me, that got me into metal, was Black Sabbath. You know, I was about 13 and saw Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. You know, like Iommi on the cover, like with like naked chicks with devil horns. I'm like, what is this? Oh, I gotta listen to this. And then you hear the very, you hear the very first riff of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Dude, I was so blown away that was it. I was like, this is what I'm going to be the rest of my life. You know?
Well, that riff still kicks total fucking ass, man.
Oh, dude,
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath.
Believe me,
incredible.
If I had to pick one guitar player that is like the absolute master of doom, it's Tony Iommi. He's the godfather of doom. You know?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Children of the Grave too, man.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome, man. Yeah.
I mean, we get in trouble. You get in trouble now for putting devils and naked chicks though.
Yeah, I got a great idea. I'll put devils and naked chicks on anything I want, and if they don't like it, well, then don't look at it.
Exactly.
Let them go look at some dumbass politically correct nonsense they want to go look at. I mean, it's real simple. Ice-T said it all. If you don't like the book, don't read it. You don't like the band, don't listen to them. You don't like the TV show, don't watch it. Plain and simple. Yeah. Mind your business and go watch something you're into.
It's really easy to scroll up, you know, just scroll like now. Like back then you had to go find the remote and change the channel, but now you just literally touch your finger to the screen. It's not hard.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I don't understand why.
I wish we had an interpreter, Jake. Anna keeps asking questions.
And they're in Spanish.
My Spanish is terrible. I understand like half of it. Something about a school of music. She likes shit.
Can you plug it into a Google Translate?
I can't from here, so I need someone else to tell us what's going on, which is it's my normal mode of operation. Please, somebody tell me what's going on.
So Munsey, I used to work with Iced Earth, and I remember I was talking to John. I think it was last time, and he's like, I've known John for. I was talking to John. He's like, I've known Munsey for 30 years, man. So you have a history with the Iced Earth stuff too.
Yeah, I've worked with John for years and years, and you know, Ripper as well.
Yeah.
You know, so. You know, I mean, John's a really good guy, and I always got along great with John. You know, me and him, we'd get on the phones, like when we were doing an Iced Earth record, you know, we'd get on the phones and like, we'd spend 10 minutes going over interview schedules and setting stuff up. And then the other hour, we were just talking about whatever we were talking about, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And whenever they were on the road, you know, we just, after the show, we'd sit in the dressing room, have drinks, and we'd chatting. Before you knew it, it was 2:30 in the morning. It's like, oh, we got to go. It's bus call. I'm like, oh shit, dude, already? What happened?
That's some Johnny Walker, man.
Yeah, I know, dude. I know, man. He's like, and he's a great guitar player too. He's very unique. He just has his own sound, his own vibe, and whenever you hear it, you're like, oh, I know that. That's John Schaefer. You know right away.
It was like what you were talking about there when you mentioned Scott Ian and Dave Mustaine. It's their right hand, their rhythm attack, and the way that they're always kind of on top of the beat or pushing it a little bit. It creates that sense of tension, you know, which is so cool with that thrash stuff. And I would even call Iced Earth sort of a thrash metal band to an extent. They get the power metal, US power metal thing, but
well, they're more power metal than anything. But you know, anybody who plays guitar knows that when you play guitar, if your left hand is on the fingerboard, everything you do to get that sound is in your right hand. It's where you pick and how you work your right hand. If you're a lefty, you're playing with your right hand and picking with your left hand. Okay, and then it's all in your left hand. It's however you do that.
Yeah.
And any guitar player will tell you that's really how you get the technique. And most people focus on, why can't I do this? Well, you're doing it with the wrong hand. You have to do it with your other hand. This is where it's going to come from.
Right, right.
And, you know, as a guitar player, you know that. You know, some people are well at it, some people aren't. Don't do it so well. You know, I mean, I was okay. I mean, I could play. You know,
Mhm.
I was loud.
Yeah.
We didn't get signed, so I guess you weren't that good. I don't know. You know.
It's amazing too when you take someone like Ingve that's completely when you dissect his technique too, it's so unorthodox in a way. Like he does it's a combination of legato, staccato, a lot of sweep picking, and then also economy picking with just trills and pull-offs. And his vibrato was just it's the best vibrato in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, Ingve, and then he'll always just say though too, it's like I didn't get it from anybody. I listened to Paganini and Bach, and that was it. And Richie Blackmore, you know.
Mhm.
Now listen, Blackmore's the old master, you know, and
Yes.
he was a big influence on Ingve. And you know, and you can ask Ingve, and he'll tell you, Richie Blackmore was like
Richie Blackmore was
And if you mention other guitar players of the time, you know, whether it was like John McLaughlin or you know Eric Clapton or like any of those cats from the '70s, you know, it was really Richie was single-handedly, but you know, put that hook and sinker into Ingve. And
Oh yeah, man.
you know, Ingve did something that everybody else tried and was successful at it and made it work. Then all of a sudden, everybody came along and tried doing what Ingve was doing.
Mhm.
Yep. The Ingve clones. Yep.
Yeah.
It was just like his and you could tell too, this his sense of attitude that also the Richie Blackmore. Joseph and I, we always watched a performance from the Us Festival with that was Deep Purple. Remember that one where it was Coverdale on vocals and then Richie just goes fucking nuts and just destroys all the amps, blows everything fucking up, sets fire to everything. I mean, it's rock and roll to a T.
Yeah, that was some crazy stuff. Man, it was cool though. That was like the 80s and the 90s were pretty rad. And even the early to mid 2000s were good. You know, everything got a little bit weird for a while, you know? And I think like now musically everything's stabilized. And, you know, I'm seeing like deathcore got really big. You know, you're seeing labels like Unique Leader come along, you know, and they came up with like Signs of the Swarm and Mental Cruelty and some really cool bands. You know, like Century Media signed Lorna Shore.
Century Media signed Lorna Shore.
There's like a handful of deathcore bands that are outselling and outstreaming the old masters, literally. Like you look at Lorna Shore and they have like millions of streams. You look at Black Sabbath and they have like hundreds of thousands of streams. It's bizarre, and that's just, you know, the sign of the times where you're dealing with a younger fan base that's listening to different stuff. You know, no inclination that the band isn't any different. It's just it's a newer band for a newer audience.
Yeah, you also get the playlist paradigm where like anything new gets shuffled off the playlist, like, you know, huge playlists, and older stuff kind of takes a back seat. Like I saw that with Sanctuary, where their older records would just kind of sit there like idle, but then their, you know, Year of the Sun Died came out and then it hit all the playlists and got like a huge boost. Even though their most popular songs are not on that record, those are the songs that come out and hit all the playlists, so they look bigger on the streaming platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, you know, and I mean, obviously we know that, you know, the royalty in streaming isn't what it is for mechanical royalty or terrestrial. And, you know, I get that, you know, but on the same token, what we're seeing is that, you know, bands with millions of streams are not really seeing the payout for it. However, you know, finally Congress approved the royalty rate. The Trump administration signed it into law, but nobody ever figured out what the new royalty rate's going to be, because I guess everybody's so freaking dysfunctional in Washington. Nobody can figure out what the other hand's doing.
It'd be great if they figured it out soon, you know?
Yeah, dude, they better, like, those guys better figure it out. And one hand better start talking to the other, because it's a mess right now. We all want to start seeing like better royalty rates.
Yeah, it's so strange, man, with the royalty rate stuff, man, because it's just it's very bizarre. It's also a whole new ground, you know, and I'm sure it's just cool to see the radio still going strong with there are those guys have been doing it for so long that we've already mentioned before, you know, the Gerbils, the Rock and Rons, and like you said, you have 400 other people that are throughout this country for it. So that's really cool. That's awesome. That's what keeps bands still going, you know, and people like Joseph and I were just talking about, we found out about these bands through those type of stations. And then we've been lifelong fans of those bands since then. And, you know,
that's the beauty of it.
On it all,
because
man.
if you look at a lot of the newer fans, you know, you see like, let's pick for example, like bands like Ne Obliviscaris from Australia. You know, very, very cool, unique band on Season of Mist. And, you know, when I went to see him live and I'm in the audience, you know, I was looking at like fans in the audience. You're seeing like a chick who's like 20 years old wearing a Dream Theater shirt, you know? Then you see somebody else wearing like a Dark Tranquility shirt. Okay. Then you see somebody else wearing, you know, a, you know, like, I don't know, like Hideous Divinity, you know, just like obscure bands that, you know, you wouldn't really expect to see somebody wearing, and they're wearing it, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. It's still there because at the end of the day, man, it's the quality. If the songs are cool, the band's cool, it's gonna last. It doesn't fucking matter.
Oh, absolutely.
It's bullshit. It's who cares, man? If the song's good, the band's cool, people will find it. People will always find it. Someone will carry it down, and people discover it, like, you know, like an archaeological discovery, you know?
No, that's all right, dude. Believe me. There's some bands that made one record, and they never made another record. And Talus is one of those bands. Billy Sheehan. Talus, High Speed on Ice.
Released a new record, or they just re-released their first record, right?
Yeah, and then they did. Then it became down to you guys got to do another record, so they did High Speed on Ice live. That's great. You had your debut record, and then you just did it as a live record, and that was it. I'm like, all right, no other records after that, you know.
Now, it's true though too. Shy Boy from, of course, the Eat 'Em and Smile. That's a Talus song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
That was Billy Sheehan, man. I remember, well, first time I heard that was shit, man. I mean, it was Steve Vai's G3 thing with Ingve and I think it was Satriani, and it was one of them. And actually, they do a cover of it. And Billy Sheehan sings the entire thing, you know, probably like the Talus version to it. It's just sick, man. I had no idea that was a Billy Sheehan song until that time. That was like 2003 or so that I first found out about that. I was born in '92. So, but just found out, man, hey, Talus stuff's fucking killer, man. And he went on with the Mr. Big stuff too and was doing what we were just talking about, the guitar duo that he was doing with Vi. He moved on with Paul Gilbert and Mr. Big, and then Mr. Big's still on their tour right now. They're I think the last tour ever.
I gotta see that.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great. Well, let's see if we have any more questions from Munsey out there in the audience. We keep getting messages that nobody's asking questions because they're just too interested in the story.
Well, that's all right. It's all right. It's all good, you know. I mean,
Munsey, how much did you know the guys in Type O?
Actually, very, very well. And you know, the crazy thing about Type O Negative is that, like Biohazard, we worked all their stuff, and I knew them. We all kind of grew up together in Brooklyn. Same thing went with Life of Agony and Type O Negative. Like when all the bands formed, for L'Amour's, we all became friends, and we all kind of, you know, came up together. And the beauty of Typo is that they were just so unique and different, compared to listening to the first album, and then like stopping and going in and listening to like Christian Woman and Black Number One and like some of like the stuff that became the mainstay everywhere. And we were actually on retainer with Napalm Records for years and years. We handled the whole label for North America, and they signed Typo Negative. And I was so psyched because at that point I had only ever worked one Typo Negative record, and I was always a big fan of the band, but I only worked one record. So I was like, yeah, great, I get to work another record. And shortly after that, Pete passed away,
Oh,
and there it is. That Ben never went in the studio to make another record, and it was kind of heart-wrenching. I mean, I knew Pete pretty well, and he was actually a really good guy.
mm-hmm. Dead again? Did you work Dead again?
I
Yeah.
think the last
Pete,
was,
listen.
Chris
You got to
Fernie.
remember, I mean, Dead Again was on SPV. That's where that was. And Life Is Killing Me was Roadrunner, so, obviously, yeah, those are like the later records, but the earlier records were absolute masterpieces. And I remember hearing the stories in the studio. It's like Pete would like come off and say, let's do this way. And the guys would say, wow, you're crazy. He goes, let's do it. And it turned out to be like genius. I mean, that was the genius of Pete Steele. And it was the genius of Josh Silver, who knew how to get the sound.
Yeah. I think Josh Silver is extremely underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And they did all those records.
Rust is my favorite record by it's fucking incredible. We have a question.
Yeah,
here.
they did all those records at Systems 2 Studios in Brooklyn. And God, what was his name? Mike Marciano, I think was his name, the engineer. Not to be confused with Mike Marciano from L'Amour's, a different Mike. And the assistant engineer on a couple of those records was a cat named Easy Reed, who I went to school with, actually. Yeah, he's a big world and jazz guy, and he won a Grammy about maybe 10 years ago.
Really? For a jazz record he was working on?
I think it was a world record. World record. It was either a world record or maybe a jazz record. I don't remember. It was like I don't remember exactly. I was just like, oh great, who are they? And then I like listened to it. I'm like, all right, that's great. I will never listen to this again ever. But it's cool.
What's that question, Jake?
Check this out, man. So they just picked up a copy of Television's Marquee Moon. Wonder if Munsey would have stories regarding Tom Verlaine. If I pronounce this wrong, I apologize. Tom Verlaine or Richard Hell or Marky Ramone.
Not really. The Ramones were mainstays around New York, and I saw them I saw so many Ramones shows, and they were like regulars everywhere. But I really didn't know the guys at all. Marky, so, I see him around and we talk to him, but I really didn't know the cat, I didn't know Joey or CJ at all,
Who is this Tom Verlaine? Verlaine?
I know Richard.
I don't know.
Yeah. Honest drinking Malbec, Jake. So.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Kudos. No vino. Yeah, Typo, man. They were such an original band, and they had a huge arc of evolution from the beginning of the band to the end. Like every record
was the hardcore stuff too.
Yeah,
it was Carnivore.
Actually,
right before.
Yeah, Carnivore was brilliant. I mean, you got to remember too. Like if you look at the original lineup, Sal Avescado was on drums. Then Sal left and went and he joined Life of Agony, and that's when Johnny Kelly came in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been the current lineup, since.
Because
I just
Sal played on
interview
Bloody
with John. No. I just read an interview with Johnny, and he says that that's a drum machine that he played pads.
Oh yes,
Bloody Kisses.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can hear it, like if you really listen, like the velocity doesn't change much.
Yeah,
like
Bloody Kisses is still an amazing record.
Well, that's the production choice. Really makes sense for that record. It sounds. I mean, it's perfect the way it is. I wouldn't change a fucking thing on that record. Did you ever see Carnivore? Like all the crazy shit they were doing?
Yeah, actually, I saw Carnivore. There was a cat here called Chris Williamson, and he used to do shows called Rock Hotel, and they were like all downtown, way downtown Manhattan. And I still have a Chris Williamson Rock Hotel shirt from way back in the day, and I can tell you because I wear on a T-shirt I'm an XL, on a Dickies work shirt I'm a large. The shirt's a medium. That tells you how freaking long ago it was. I still have this shirt in my drawer, and Carnivore did a show for Chris Williamson's Rock Hotel. Dude, he had all the cool stuff. He had Chromags. He had all kinds of stuff that was happening.
That's fucking cool, man. Dude, I was just thinking, man, of there was. So so Sabotage. Did you ever deal with those guys at all?
Yeah, actually, we did most of the Sabotage stuff. We picked up on with Sabotage after Hole of the Mountain King.
Okay.
So the Wake of Magellan, that was us. Obviously Gutter Ballet and Crown of Thorns, all that stuff. That was all us. We did most of those records.
Wow. Okay. Right on, man. Yeah. There's a the guitar player. He's also with TSO now. His name's
Chris Caffrey. Yeah, Chris Caffrey is East Coast, and Al Petrelli is West Coast.
So Al Petrelli, I'm a huge Howard
Jeff
Stern
Flake
fan,
replaced Steve as drummer in Sabotage. And come to think of it, what was it? Edge of Thorns was the first record I worked for them.
Okay, yeah. So that was with that's with Zach Stevens.
I think it was either Edge of Thorns or Handful of Rain. I don't remember. But I think Handful of Rain came before Edge of Thorns. So yeah, I'm gonna say Handful of Rain.
Handful of Rain is with Skolnick. The last record with Chris is Edge of Thorns. Yeah.
We have another question here. What are some of the best venues in New York City, new and old?
Pretty sure that's for Munsey.
Yeah, it's for you, Munsey.
What's it say? I can't even see it on here. What's
one of the best venues in
Stamp Small.
Yeah.
New York City.
Do you want to read it?
Well, old, I'm going to say L'Amour's was like my home away from home. I love L'Amour's. That was it. It was all about L'Amour's. Yep. Oh, yeah, dude. L'Amour's was it. But there's still great venues here. Obviously Irving Plaza is a great venue. And you get all the way down to like the small nook and cranny places like Lucky 13, in Brooklyn. That's small spot, but it's very intimate. It's kind of cool. And St. Vitus, I think, is mad cool also. Yeah. If you're in New York and you're going to see a show, you got to go to St. Vitus.
Yep.
We love Duff's, man. Duff's the bar in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We filmed a video there. Just played at St. Vitus with Sanctuary, like the last tour we did.
L'Amour's was in Brooklyn, right? That was kind of like where in Brooklyn was L'Amour's? That was
Bay Ridge.
Okay, Bay Ridge. Okay.
Yeah, L'Amour's was in Bay Ridge. That's like that was like the spot. It was that Bay Ridge, an iconic venue, and it was on 62nd Street. or 61st Street, depending on which side you were in.
Trying to think of where that could be.
Bay Ridge, Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar. I didn't live there. I was down in the financial district. We
Right.
we would get lost when we went to Brooklyn for like auditions and stuff.
And
Damn it.
The beauty of Brooklyn is that you could go to Brooklyn and we didn't have GPS back then. You had to get a map and look at the letters and the numbers and kind of figure it out. It was so damn easy to get lost.
All right. So my question here is, I'm a fucking huge food fan. Best place.
You're what?
Where are you at right now, Munsey? Which part of New York? Are you in Brooklyn?
I'm in Long Island right now.
Oh, Long Island. Where's the best food in all of the 5 boroughs?
Dude, there's the best food is everywhere. We have the food here. Anywhere you go, you're gonna find good food. So there you go.
You had to pick. What was the best pizza?
I can't pick a number one place, dude. I just can't do it. You know.
That's a fucked up question, Munsey. Best pizza. Your favorite pizza. Come on,
dude.
People
I've
off.
had great pizza everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's like so many great pizzerias. Unlike going to California, where everyone's like, the Rainbow has great pizza. I'm like, well, for West Coast pizza, it's edible, but it is not great pizza. Okay, sorry.
It's edible. It slides off, dude. The fucking everything slides off.
No.
Try to eat a Rainbow pizza.
You know, it is what it is.
Top three pizza places in New York City.
Let's see. I'm gonna say either King or Prince and Berto's. They're awesome. Gino's is amazing too, down in Little Italy, or actually Puglia in Little Italy. They're pretty dope. And who else is pretty damn good? Gino's in Long Island is actually pretty good too. God, there's another guy. He's in Chelsea, and I can't remember the name of it. He's on 8th Avenue and 26th Street, but I can't remember the name of the place. I think Luigi's or something or other. When I was in school, I used to go there and like eat pizza all the time.
What about
because that's all I could afford when I was in school. I get a $2. It was $2 for a slice and a soda. So I ate pizza like every day.
Jesus.
I was gonna ask, man. What about Di Ferrara in Brooklyn?
Who? Di
Ferrara in Brooklyn. It's like a iconic spot there. They have lines and shit out the door. I've
never been.
It was good,
Haven't
man.
Been.
That's a tour.
It's way up in Brooklyn. Like, it is not easy to get to. This guy wants to know if you work with Suicidal Tendencies.
Yes, I have. I've done a couple of records for them. Yeah, we did the Freedom record, which was actually pretty cool. We did the latest stuff, not the earliest stuff. But yeah, they're definitely a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Munsey, we don't want to keep you too long. We're going to ask anyone who wants to ask final questions. Nothing too vulgar. We already got the pizza quote from you because that's going to go on YouTube Shorts, and we'll see how many hate comments you get.
Dude, like, you know what? Let's see how many people give me hate comments, and I'm like, I'm going to wait for somebody from LA to be like, what do you mean the Rainbow doesn't have good pizza? I'm like, that's because it's in LA and it's not New York, Boston, or Philly. Okay. And even Providence, you know, the Hill in Providence is great. You know, it's all Italian. It's awesome. You know,
I've heard New Haven's got the best too.
I don't know. I've never really had pizza in New Haven, but you know, Hanover Street in Boston or the Hill in Rhode Island, you know, anywhere in New York, there's a lot of good pizzerias, man.
You know,
that'll be it. Besides pizza, what's your favorite cuisine to get out?
Dude, I don't know. I like to eat, and I eat whatever I want. So if I'm in the mood for Greek, I'm going to do Greek. If I'm in the mood for sushi, I'm doing sushi. If I want Korean barbecue, I'm going for Korean barbecue.
Oh, hell yeah. There's great all of that in New York, man.
And Indian food.
Yeah.
I love Indian food. So we'll go to 6th Street where all the Indian restaurants are. And definitely do Indian down there. It's awesome.
They call it Curry Row, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on Friday and
Yeah,
Saturday nights, you see guys down there with Zitas and stuff. It's pretty cool.
New York is the best place in the U.S., I would say, for food. No question about it. Manhattan.
It's like a world into itself. Like New York City is its own world.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue. We could get on a whole other podcast about arguing the difference between. There are parts of Los Angeles where you can get down into like past Pasadena and all that kind of stuff, where it's like the whole authentic Chinese stuff, but that's about it, man. New York's got it for pretty much all over worldly stuff.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man. Well, Munsey, thanks so much, man.
Dude, thanks for having me on, man. I had a great time tonight. It's a Sunday. What else is there to do on a Sunday but talk to you guys?
Well, you could be out getting shit-faced on the bunch of Irish guys on
Yeah, I know. I could go out with Irish guys and get drunk, but that's all right. I'm good.
Cheers, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
You got it.
Happy St. Patty's.
Thank you, man.
Hey, Munsey, I'll give you.
Say what?
I'll give you a call tomorrow and I'll play us out. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot, man.
Oh, dude, always do. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it, Joseph.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, Munsey. Bye-bye. I thought we were live the entire time.
Every song is a fucking journey.
This is the worst tour I've ever done.
Anthony Crawford says Gene Simmons is crazy.
Black Album was one of the greatest fucking records of all time.
Dude, that dude is crazy. Rock and roll ain't dead.
Metal was banned.
What was the reason why it was banned?
Politics and religion.
Sometimes the world no longer needs a hero. Sometimes what it needs is a monster. Sometimes the world no longer needs a hero. Sometimes what it needs is a monster.